Prime Minister Netanyahu was saying in an article this morning that I read, his concern that if they don't destroy the Hamas war machine in Gaza before the ceasefire, they're just going to be able to reconstitute.
Absolutely. And they're so close. The people that I've talked to with the IDF and some of their former IDF officials, they're so close to having total control of Gaza. And, Hamas never misses an opportunity, or the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to make things even worse for themselves. And the irony is Israel and the Palestinians have been negotiating in Doha, and Hamas is just not willing to accept some of the Israel requirements. So I think it's going to get done. I think Israel's going to go even more aggressively to get it done to the point that they have total control of Gaza. I've talked to some people in a recent trip to Israel, and Hamas is reestablishing. I mean, they were down about 5,000 troops, I understand. I think they're up to around 25, 30. But if Israel can control the Gaza, they can control that as well.
Yeah. But let's talk prophetically, Bill, because, you love Israel, and you've loved Israel for a long, long time, and you have a very strategic position there as a White House correspondent of seeing politically what's happening. Talk about prophetically. What do you think prophetically is happening right now that's significant?
Well, it seems, and this is also, we did an open letter the other day, Jimmy, to the president, and I think our greatest concern is there's a very aggressive push by President Trump, and especially his envoy, Steve Witkoff, to put the Abraham Accords in place with the Saudis, Syria, maybe Lebanon, and possibly some other Sunni countries. And our concern is that the Israel's land will continue to be a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
And we're calling for President Trump right now, fine, you can do the Abraham Accords, but take Israel's land out of the equation. May it no longer be a factor. When you're talking about negotiations, it's not to be negotiated, it's not to be divided, it's not to be parted, it's not to be given as an inducement to the Abraham Accords. And so that's our posture right now, as we just pray, okay, President Trump, again, if you want to do a deal, do an Abraham Accords deal, but leave the land and the two-state plan completely out of the mix.
Well, Bill, Saudi Arabia and France went to the United Nations last month to have a two-state summit without Israel. And specifically, they were omitting Israel from any negotiations at the United Nations. Now, they had to delay the summit because the war broke out. But this is shades of Armageddon when you have the United Nations meeting for the purpose of imposing a two-state solution on Israel without their will. I know the United States would have vetoed that in the Security Council, but how much do you think a two-state solution right now is on the table? And I know that President Trump is against that. Do you believe he's still against that?
I think Ambassador Huckabee's role in this, he has been very straightforward since he became ambassador, that a two-state solution is not workable. It's not realistic. And also the fact that the Arabs have a tremendous amount of land that could supply or provide for a Palestinian state. So I think Ambassador Huckabee's role in this, as well as encouraging President Trump biblically, and that he was the man for the hour on the Iran strike. I think that might have been the final decision point when Ambassador Huckabee sent a personal text to President Trump that he put on the White House X site and also the White House site was very significant. And I think when you hear what Ambassador Huckabee's been saying, two states not realistic, let's just don't go in that direction. And I think that, and also the fact that giving up any land right now is not going to be a benefit to Israel.
No. So, again, prophetically, the Gog and Magog War will happen someday. Do you see that coming together in the near future? Is that something you think is a possibility?
I still think, I guess the question was, a 12-day war a fulfillment of Jeremiah 49, 35 through 39, that speaks of Elam, modern-day Iran, where they get hit pretty hard. and the gospel will be spread throughout the country. The question, I don't know if that's been fulfilled, but then I look at these Ezekiel 38:11 too, when Israel will live in unwalled cities or live in a period of peace. Don't know how long that could be. It could be months. It could be a year. But I think that knocking out Hamas, knocking out of Hezbollah, and devastating Iran, knocking out 40 or 50 of their top generals, nuclear scientists, I think we're certainly moving in that direction, Jimmy. You've covered it for a long time. I think we're getting much, much closer to that. But I think a part of our motivation right now is for President Trump to be fully blessed by taking a position on Israel's covenant land like he never has before, and receive the blessing of Genesis 12:3.
Absolutely. You see Russia as being much of a player right now. What in Turkey, Russia and Turkey specifically, because obviously, Iran is Persia in Ezekiel 38. Turkey and Russia, are they doing much right now?
Russia has not said much. Medvedev during the Israel-Iran conflict, Medvedev said, he called on other nations to provide nuclear weapons to Iran. That and Putin somewhat agreed with that, but they never really went very far. Russia was not much of a player, to be quite honest. They were so busy with their war in the Ukraine. They do have a close relationship. They get a lot of sophisticated drones from Iran. But with that said, they weren't a big player in this. I think the other factor is Erdogan says it's time for us to build our own missiles. So, as a member of NATO, he continues to be problematic in some of his statements and actions. So I always have thought for a long time, Jimmy, that Erdogan's the one that we really need to keep an eye on and watch his behavior and actions.
Absolutely. He's very rabidly anti-Israel. Of course, he's much closer than Russia as it relates to response. Syria, we're talking about Israel going back into, I think it was a 1974 agreement with Syria related to borders and related to relationship. Talk about that and how significant that is.
Yeah, I just saw that. It just came out yesterday. The interim president of Syria mentioned that. I'm starting to study that, Jimmy, is just how much of how that will affect the Golan Heights. And Israel's becoming very adamant about no land within the Golan Heights is going to be given up. So that 74 comment, I'm going to look at that. He's calling for UN peacekeepers, but Israel's really digging in right now and knows the importance of the Golan Heights, especially in context of future Syria concerns.
And President Trump has recognized Israel's right to the Golan Heights.
Yes.
And I believe the significance of when President Trump said that we're going to own that land in Gaza and turn it into a resort, to me, the significance of that statement was he was saying he no longer recognizes the Palestinians' right to that land. I don't know if that's reading too much into it. Do you agree with that?
I think when it comes to Gaza, the situation, having Egypt and Qatar be the oversights when some weapons have been smuggled in from Egypt, and when there has been money from Qatar that's helped fund Hamas, and the three top Hamas leaders have lived in Doha. They're all billionaires. One of them's died. Hania was killed in Tehran. I think, it's difficult because the Trump administration, President Trump, and also Steve Witkoff, who had his $635 million hotel that was going broke in New York, bought by Qatar. And then Qatar provided a $400 million plane to President Trump that's going to be used in between the next Air Force One. And the fact that it was just announced a couple of weeks ago that there's going to be a big, massive real estate deal done by Trump International or Trump Development Company inside of Doha. So those are concerns. And that's something for us to keep praying about. I mean, President Trump's done more for Israel than all presidents combined. But these relationships, we pray that these relationships and some of these business relationships and some of these commitments that he just made. I mean, he got a commitment of anywhere from $3 to $4, possibly up to $5 trillion from the Saudis, the Emiratis, and the Qataris in his recent May trip. So obviously that's something we're watching very closely too. And Jimmy, it's just areas that we have to continue to pray. President Trump's been such a good friend of Israel, but some of these relationships that we're watching are very concerning.
Well, I made a comment concerning, Turkey and Erdogan, that President calls him his dear friend, very smart man, whatever, is that I think that hopefully President Trump will get to the point where he is able to discern between some of these leaders that are rabidly anti-Semitic. There we're seeing the White House now. So I guess the rain has stopped.
Yeah, not much left.
Yeah. But I think that President Trump, a good point of prayer is that he would have discernment in these relationships, especially as it relates to Israel and their security. One more thing I want to talk to you about, Bill, and that's the Temple Mount. What are you hearing and seeing related to the Temple Mount and, preparations to rebuild the temple, the red heifers, all that stuff? What's going on over there?
Well, the utensils are supposedly provided. Supposedly the red heifers candidates are in Shiloh. When I was in Israel, Tanya and I were there for about 3 weeks. We continue to hear a lot of enthusiasm from the Orthodox Jews about the future of a third temple. Haven't followed this closely, but I know there's some things happening behind the scenes. And, it's something, Jimmy, that we're really following very closely. We will be following closely. We're not at this point. So, it's going to get interesting. It's the most valuable 35 acres in the world. And it's going to be very significant biblically in the final days.